Hi, welcome to another time of devotion. It's been a while since we've done an upload. I say a while, but I mean, in grand scheme of life, it hadn't been that long. But anyway, so God has been really impressing on my heart to do the book of James. So let's look at the first chapter today, and I'm going to go ahead and read it to you. Feel free to open up your Bible and follow along, and let's get to it. So, James chapter 1. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad. Greetings. My brethren, count it all joy when ye fall into divers temptations, knowing that the trying of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea, driven with the wind and tossed. For let not that man think that he shall receive anything of the Lord. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Let the brother of low degree rejoice in that he is exalted, but the rich in that he is made low, because as the flower of the grass he shall pass away. For the sun is no sooner risen with a burning heat, but it withereth the grass, and the flower thereof falleth, and the grace of the fashion of it perisheth. So also shall the rich man fade away in his ways. Bless the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempt he any man. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust, and enticed. Then, when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin. And sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. Do not err, my beloved brother. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. Of his own will begat he us with the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. Wherefore lay apart all filthiness and superfluity of naughtiness, and receive with meekness the engrafted word, which is able to save the soul. But be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. For if any be a hearer of the word, and not a doer, he is like unto a man, beholding his natural face in a glass. For he beholdeth himself, and goeth his way, and straightway forgetteth what manner of man he was. But whosoever looketh into the perfect law of liberty, and continueth, he, being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this man shall be blessed in his deed. If any man among you seem to be religious, and bridleth not his tongue, but deceiveth his own heart, this man's religion is in vain. Pure religion, undefiled, hair keep getting in my face, before God and the Father is this: to visit the fatherless and the widows in their affliction, to keep himself unspotted from the world. To keep himself unspotted from the world. That's James chapter 1. So let's look at that in detail. And I'm going to be looking to the left because I've already prepared this and studied it and did some looking up in Strong's Concordance, some of the words in it. So let's look at verse 1. Now, verse 1, we shouldn't have hardly any trouble understanding what this means, because it's simply a greeting to everyone that the letter is going to. So let's look at verse 2. Verse 2 says, My brethren, count it all joy when ye fall into divers temptations. Count it all joy when the adversary or your lust sends you divers temptations, or when you are tempted with a variety of temptations. Why should you count it as joy? Or why should you be joyful? Well, the word tells us. In the very next verse, it says, know this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. Because Satan sees that you have a new master, he wants to see if he can steal you back. He, Satan, is trying your faith to see if it is real and true, or if it's just simply something you're claiming. If you really believe, or if you merely are speaking words, is what he's trying to figure out. Do you really believe it? You need to ask yourself that. This trying your faith that he is doing causes a gift or a benefit to be produced in you as you go through this. And that gift is patience, which is one of the fruits of the Spirit. Verse 4 then tells us, but let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. Through these temptations, Satan or your flesh are trying to get you to reject God. This trying of you by Satan works patience in you to the point of perfected patience. Perfected patience. That's a blessing. Verse 5 says, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask God, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. Verse 5 tells us that if you don't understand how to apply the knowledge you have, then ask, and he will give it to you. Wisdom is rightfully applying the knowledge or understanding. God says he will give you wisdom liberally or in abundance, and that he won't take it back because he's not going to upbraid it. He gives it, and it's yours. Now, verse 6 tells us, but let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea, driven with the wind and tossed. This tells us that we must be in faith. Not that we must have faith, but that we are in faith. If you are not in faith, then you are in doubt. And doubt is unbelief. Unbelief is calling God a liar. Think about that, friend. Verse 7 tells us, for let not that man, let me scroll down so I can see it better. For let not that man think that he shall receive anything of the Lord. If you are doubting and wavering in unbelief, not in faith, but in unbelief, God says don't even think that you will receive, because you won't. And verse 8 tells us more about that person. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. So verse 8 reveals the heart of the person that wavers, doubts, and doesn't believe. That they are unstable in all their ways. Not some of them, but all of them. Okay, Strong's Concordance unstable is G182, and I may butcher this, but akatastos. Unstable, inconstant, restless. In Webster Dictionary, and for those of you who've listened to me for long enough knows that I love Webster's 1828, because that's before they removed all the references to the Word of God. He says it means not stable, not fixed, not steady, inconstant, irresolute, wavering. And it even references James 1:8, where that verse comes from. Now, verse 9 through 11 says, let the brother of low degree rejoice in that he is exalted, but the rich that in his he is made, but the rich in that he is made low. Because as the flower of the grass he shall pass away. For the sun is no sooner risen with a burning heat, but it withereth the grass. I'm getting tongue twisted. And the flower thereof falleth, and the grace of the fashion of it perisheth. So also shall the rich man fade away in his ways. These verses are very much like Matthew 19:23 through 26, which says, Then said Yeshua unto his disciples, Verily I say unto you, that a rich man shall hardly enter into the kingdom of heaven. And again I say unto you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven. When his disciples heard it, they were exceedingly amazed, saying, Who then can be saved? Because they were assuming that the wealthy person was more important. But Yeshua beheld them, and he said unto them, With men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. Amen. Don't be like the rich man who completely trusts in himself, in his things, or in what his money can obtain. Verse 12 continues on with this understanding of temptation. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to them that love him. When you're able to endure, withstand, and not succumb to the temptations, you have proven that you truly believe. Because you truly believe the Lord gives you a crown of life. You get this crown of life only because you did not fall for the lies of the devil. Verse 13 says, Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. All temptations are evil because they look to produce an outcome that is contrary to the character of God, which is to be our character. So do we get that? I hear people so often saying that it is God that's sending that, but that's not true. They're deceived. Because it says right here, God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. And he is completely saying that temptations are evil. Why are they evil? Because they're trying to produce an outcome that is contrary to the character of God, which is to be our new character. This verse is a reminder to not fall into the false doctrine or wrong understanding of who these temptations are from. They are not from God. Okay? God does not and cannot tempt you, and temptations are evil. Verse 14 says, But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. This verse tells us where temptations come from. They come from our own lust, our own sinful heart. Why do I say that they come from Satan or the devil? Satan's character is to kill, steal, and destroy. So if it falls into that category, then Satan, is somewhere in the midst of that. Whether he's throwing you that temptation dart, and whether or not you take that thought captive and subject it to the obedience of Christ, or whether or not you take it in, or you assume that because you have that thought, it's your thought. Well, not every thought you have is your thought. Okay? Then when, verse 15 says, Then when lust hath conceived. So it's not just a mere thought now. It's planted a seed and it's producing. When lust hath conceived. When you conceive something like a woman, when she's conceived, she's pregnant. There's a baby there, okay? It's not just a thought. There's life, okay? So, then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin. When it is finished, when that sin is over and is done, and at the end of it, what does it bring? It bringeth forth death. This verse tells us what the end result is. If you don't overcome temptation, lust, and sin, it brings death, not life. This death is very much spiritual, as you can see below. As you can see or hear, which I'm about ready to tell you. I'm reading because I'm going to put this out on the internet too. The original language says that it's spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. So let's look at that. Strong's Concordance G2280A, Thanatos, the death of the body. That separation, whether natural or violent. You hear that? It's like a violent separation of the soul and the body by which the life on earth is ended. with the implied idea of future misery in hell, the power of death. A metaphor, the loss of that life which alone is worthy of the name. The misery of the soul arising from sin. So misery of the soul. Okay. So the mind, misery of the mind, which begins on earth but lasts and increases after death of the body in hell. So that misery of that soul continues in hell. The miserable state of the wicked dead in hell. The widest sense, death comprising all miseries arising from sin, as well as physical death as a loss of life, consecrated to God and blessed in Him on earth, to be followed by wretchedness in hell. I need a drink. I feel like I swallowed a bug. Shh. I very may have. So, this is death. Spiritual, mental, emotional, physical. And then verse 16 says, do not err, my beloved brethren. Another reminder to know the character of God and not to attribute to Him the attributes that do not belong to Him, but to the adversary. The next verse is a reminder of God's character. But again, this, do not err, my beloved brethren. How can we err? By attributing to God the attributes that do not belong to Him. They belong to the devil. Verse 17 says, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. This verse shows us the character of God. His gifts are only good and only perfect. Temptations are neither good nor perfect, but evil. God is not constantly changing nor hiding in the shadows, is what it says. These things of temptation can never come from Him. In verse 18 it says, of His own will begat He us with the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of His creatures. Now I'm going to pause there for just a second because I want to back up, because I want to share with you another verse, because just to remind you of how we're supposed to be walking. We need to walk in the Spirit. So Galatians 5, I'm going to read verses 16 through 18. So let's see. I say then, walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. So how do you need to walk? In the Spirit. If you're walking in the Spirit, then you're not walking in the flesh. You're not walking with that carnal mind. For the flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary one to the other, so that ye cannot do the things that ye would. So if you're walking in the flesh, you can't do the things that you would. You have to walk in the Spirit. Now let's go back to verse 18. Of His own will begat He us with the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of His creatures. This verse tells us the relationship that the Father wants with each one of us. That is to begat us, to birth us into new creations, to be first fruits, not to be dead living in sin and wallowing in the mud of temptation, which is evil, but He wants us to be His children. He wants to birth us into new creatures. Isn't that awesome? New species of being. Praise God. Now, verse 19 says, wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. This verse, coupled with the previous verse, tells us that we need to be very attentive to hear and receive the truth. To not be angry to the point of a physical response, because what's being revealed goes against what we've been taught, what you've been taught, and believe. Don't be stubborn, but receive the truth and be set free from the false doctrine and break that scared or that visual of who you think God is, which is kind of like Zeus. So you want to break that sacred cow stronghold, which is not according to the word. And the average churchgoer, I brought up Zeus, doesn't realize that most of you view God as the Greek god Zeus. And you're thinking, what? I can't. But no, our God is not sitting up there on Mount Olympus ready to throw a lightning bolt down at you. He's not trying to throw you a temptation so he can zap you. You shouldn't have did that. That is not God. That's Zeus. That's not God. Verse 20 says, for the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. This is a reminder that wrath does not and cannot work the righteousness of God. We are made the righteousness of God through Yeshua HaMashiach, if we believe. This is not a mental assent, a mental agreement, but a living action. We are in faith because we are one. John 14 goes into a more detail about he and I and him, and he and the Father and him. We are one. Not two, but one. 2 Corinthians 5:21 says, for he hath made him to be sin for us, who knew no sin. Okay, so he can't sin. He can't throw you sin temptations because he can't partake in that. That's not who he is. He's not capable of sinning. That we might be made the righteousness of God in him. Romans 3:22 says, even the righteousness of God, which is by faith of Yeshua HaMashiach, unto all and upon all them that believe. For there is no difference. Let's look at verse 21. Wherefore lay apart all, not some, all, filthiness and superfluidity of naughtiness. Superfluidity. Whoa, that's like sliding right down in there. And receive with meekness the engrafted word, which is able to save your souls. This scripture gives us detail of what cannot be in our lives if we are his new creations, his first fruits. Strong's Concordance says filthiness is G4507, which is ra pare. To make filthy, befoul, to defile, to dishonor, to make filthy, dirtiness, far as dirtiness morally, turpitude, inherent baseness or vileness of the principle in the human heart, extreme depravity, baseness or vileness of words or actions, shameful wickedness, of wickedness or moral defilement. Superfluidity is parrhesia, abundance, superabundantly, superfluously, superiority, preference, preeminence, superabundance, gain, profit, residue, remains the wickedness remaining over in his state prior to conversion. Of naughtiness, G 2549, kia, malignity, malice, ill will, desire to injure, wickedness, depravity, wickedness that is not ashamed to break law. Evil, trouble, badness, depravity, malice, evil again, and wickedness. Engrafted is amphiotus, inborn, implanted by nature, implanted by other instruction. We have been implanted into God by grafting. Okay. Engrafting. I want to explain that to you. In one of the Bible studies, I talked briefly about engrafting. And if you don't do anything with like fruit trees and stuff like that, you may not know about this, but it's super cool. So, say apples. There's no apple that you eat that it came from a tree that grew as a seed. Okay? So all fruit trees nowadays are engrafted. So what they do is they take a seed, not a seedling, well, you could call it a seedling, a young baby tree, okay? Very small baby tree. And what they do is they cut a piece of the tree that they like the fruit that it produces, and then they cut a groove slit into that baby tree and put in that piece of the tree that they like the fruit from, okay? Now they do this during the springtime when the sap or like the blood of the tree is flowing. And then you've got the little cut into the baby tree, and you've got the other piece in like this. And so they bind that together, and this baby tree ends up taking on the attributes of this tree right here. So if this was like a peach tree, or, who knows what. I can't remember what all the different types that they use. But anyway, it now thinks it's this apple tree. And so when it grows, it will grow all these branches of the apple tree. And the tree now thinks it's an apple tree because it's been engrafted. It doesn't understand that it wasn't born an apple tree. It just knows that it's an apple tree because it's been engrafted. That's what we are with God. I mean, we are engrafted. Okay? It's no longer us that lives, but Him. You get it? We're engrafted. This is us, the baby tree. And this is Him putting His branch into us. And as it grows and eventually comes out with all these branches, this is it. All the apple branches with all the nice little apple falling and coming down from it is not what it originally was. It's an apple tree. Is that not cool? I'm not what I originally was. I'm engrafted in God. How cool is that? Okay, so let's move on. That, to me, that is just so awesome. So awesome. Okay, let me see where I left off at in this, because I just so love that, because it's no longer me. I'm engrafted. It's God in me. So cool. This verse details what must be removed, meaning the verse that I just read, and that we are to receive the word. That means Yeshua with meekness. We are to receive Yeshua. And then it's not me. It's Him. Verse 22 says, "But be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves." Deceiving your own selves. Let's read that again. "But be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves." How are we to live? If we don't live the way He has prescribed, God says we are deceiving ourselves. We must be doers. Matthew 7:21 says, "Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doth the will of my Father which is in heaven." Whoa, let's stop right there. For all those who got some of that false doctrine says, oh, you just simply have to believe that Jesus was the Son of God. Well, God's word also says that demons believe that and fear and tremble. But they're not going to hear the kingdom of God. What does it say? Matthew 7:21 says, "Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doth the will of my Father which is in heaven." This verse is a reminder of what Jesus said, that if we hear and don't do what we have heard, that we are deceiving ourselves, that we belong to Him, and that we will enter into the kingdom of heaven one day. That's some strong stuff. This isn't me telling you that. That's what it said right here in the Word. So, let's go on to Matthew 23, not Matthew,